I'm Brian Christner, and this is The Byte, a bite-sized podcast about containers, cloud, and tech.
Welcome back to The Byte. I'm in San Francisco this week for DockerCon, and day one is in the books. It was a lot of information we received in this keynote and also throughout the day. Talked to a lot of interesting people, some new companies I was never exposed to before, so I'm going to kind of dive into these separate topics in different episodes because there's a lot of information I gathered and I want to share it with everyone. And I find it's super interesting because it's some spaces like IoT, Open Policy Agent, which I haven't really covered in the past and I've been exposed to now, and it's really interesting, so I'm going to share these information with you as well. But in the keynote for DockerCon, it was focused on first a customer panel. The customer panel had, a couple financial institutions, had Carnival cruise lines, which was really interesting because, they're designing like a user experience or a customer experience for the passengers. So they get a medallion, and this medallion kind of anticipates, where they're going through the ship and helps them navigate the ship. It anticipates, their needs, helps you track your family on the ship. It does a lot of cool things. So they're actually wrapping Carnival cruise line ships in a container, the entire ship and the experience. It was a very interesting talk. Also, the Lindsay Corporation. It's a farm company. They produce machinery, but they're using Docker in a global scale for industrial IoT, farming. But their farm equipment is saving like 900,000 gallons of water a year, based on their new technology that they're only giving as much water as needed to the farms. So it was a really interesting customer panel, to be honest. I wasn't expecting it because customer panels typically are very salesy, but this was really interesting, so I quite enjoyed it. Next up, we walked through like the Docker survey that was available by Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow announced a couple weeks back about developers' adoption of different platforms, but Docker scored quite high. For Docker for desktop, it's the most wanted platform, most loved platform is number 2, most used platform is number 3. So 1, 2, 3, it's ranked in one of these categories, which is quite impressive. Now, the actual conference, the keynote, we kicked off with Docker Enterprise version 3.0. 3.0 encompasses 3 different features that are coming out. So Docker Desktop Enterprise, we've seen that in Barcelona, seems to be becoming more mature and it's getting ready. So I'm getting super excited. I'm already pushing product management for some demos and some access. Next up is Docker Kubernetes as a service, Kubernetes Service, DKS. We didn't go into too much detail here because it was just lightly touched on, so I have a lot of questions here still. Docker Application, I'll touch this in a moment because they did some really cool demos around this. Next up, Docker Enterprise, Docker as a service, Docker Enterprise as a service. It's a managed Docker installation, so managed Docker, on-prem, in the cloud, on your own machines, wherever you want. This is something that we as a company, 56K, we see a lot of customers asking for. They're like, we want containers, we want these, but we don't want to manage it. We want someone else to manage it. So I think it's going after a space that's really needed, to be honest, and it's something that it's desired at the moment, I see. So back to Docker Desktop Enterprise. It's come a long way since Barcelona. I've noticed, it has a lot more features, it looks a lot more polished. One of the things that stuck out at me is now you can do version control, so you can have multiple versions running. You can switch between, version 1, 2, 3, 4, and this enables you to, test and build against a newer version, however, backported to an older version that's running in production. So you can play around with version control there. Also, from an organization point of view, you can control the Docker for Desktop Enterprise, deployments and what versions and what features and permissions can be installed. So from a enterprise perspective, it looks pretty interesting. K8s, Kubernetes, and Docker's included, obviously. They're kind of making like a marketplace within Docker for Desktop Enterprise. It's predefined application stacks. As a company, you can have, your bread and butter application. It could be Node.js, some middleware, and a backend. You can wrap it as a predefined application bundle, and your developers can just take it, add their applications into it, and deploy it all through a GUI. So this is really lowering the bar for entry into the enterprise space. People that are not maybe familiar with the command line or not so comfortable, this really opens up the possibilities of people to use Docker. It's quite interesting. I'm really looking forward to using it, to be honest. Next up was on the command line side is Docker app, which is like an implementation of CNAB, and that's a new standard for application bundles. And what it is, the cloud native application bundle is what it's called. And Docker app allows us to use the same workflow for legacy applications, brownfield, greenfield, if we were trying to containerize new applications. And we saw a demo where, they have 3 different application types: legacy, brownfield, greenfield, and, they containerized all of them. So basically the command, it looks inside the current directory. Oh, it's a Java directory. You run this command docker assemble. It actually looks, creates a Docker file. It creates some testing files. It creates everything for you. You can actually open up directly from Docker for Desktop Enterprise into Visual Studio Code, make your changes, commit it back to Git. It's really nice. Additionally, what's also included in here is now we can do Docker pipelines. So after we do our Docker assemble, we can do Docker pipeline, and it actually creates a Jenkins pipeline for us. So it's auto-generated Jenkins pipeline. I thought that was pretty cool. Got a pretty nice reception from the crowd. There's a lot of interesting things coming. I mean, I see quite some things in the works. Day 2 is today, so we're going to see a lot more from the technical side. We're going to dive deeper into the technical side, talk to a lot of companies, and I expect to interview some more people while I'm here and dive into some of these new company topics that I've seen that I wasn't exposed to before. So it's been an exciting first day. Day 1 is in the books. And join me, and I'll keep you updated on how the day goes. Have a great day. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Byte. You can find the show notes at thebyte.io and follow me on Twitter at I Do My Own Tricks.